A very warm welcome back to the Sustainable Summit Week of 2020. We are now on day 3. It has been an amazing 2.5 days thus far, speaking about sustainability. How do we ensure that we develop a culture of understanding and having awareness around waste management and developing the waste economy? We also looked at being responsible citizens around tourism, sustainable tourism. We know that was hit hard by the pandemic. We also had conversations about infrastructure development and also what are the other value chains existing in the green economy. Thank you very much for tuning in this morning. And indeed, as earlier mentioned, we are on day 3, our final day. Once again, just a brief thank you to all our sponsors that have been involved in ensuring that sustainability summit comes to pass. And indeed, we had rigorous conversations and content that is quite challenging and thought provoking. So thank you to Old Mutual, to Tetra Pak, to Singita, which will be one of our lead facilitators today in our panel discussions, as well as we talk agriculture. It truly is an honor to be here this morning discussing sustainability. And today we're looking at sustainable enterprise development and different supply chains. We're also going to be focusing on agriculture as well. And concomitant to that, we know that this was a great flow and feed from yesterday's conversations around creating a sustainable blue economy. I'm reminded of the words by Neil deGrasse Tyson, who says, "Be ashamed to die up until you've achieved some victory for humanity." Part of us achieving some victory for humanity is us prioritizing sustainability to make sure that we preserve resources and we also preserve the earth for generations to come. And a lot of our panelists yesterday launched the discussion around Gen Z and generations that are looking at the economy from a different perspective. They are internalizing the importance of production and consumption, but doing it the right way and ensuring that we develop other value chains that have to do with our health. So, not just about economic empowerment and development, but most importantly, about preservation, conservation, purification, and so forth. As we start this morning, we'll be having very interesting discussions today. As mentioned earlier, we are kickstarting the day with sustainable enterprise and supply chain development. And later on, we'll be looking at achieving a sustainable reset in agriculture. We know that we are told that SMMEs will be responsible for close to between 80 and 90% of employment by 2030. And we are relying on SMME development and support to ensure that mass employment is created, particularly in manufacturing and industrial sectors. We know that companies develop their supply chains so that they can reduce their costs and remain competitive in the marketplace as well as in the business landscape. An optimized supply chain thereof results in lower costs and faster production cycles and skills as well. And this is why it's critical for us to capacitate SMMEs in the green economy. It's also very important that SMMEs participate in the green economy, and as they participate, they be more equipped, developed, and supported as well. Organizations such as the Green Cape have endorsed support programs for green, small, micro, and medium sized enterprises. This was launched with the assistance from the EU. The Green Cape also embarked on 12 SMMEs to be supported through the Green Outcomes Fund established by the Green Cape and also the National Treasury. So it's very informative to know that the government is participating in the drive towards developing more SMMEs in the green economy. We do know that there are 6 pillars that capacitate green development, particularly where enterprise development is concerned. We know that when we speak about the green economy and when we speak about SMMEs in the space, we speak about businesses participating in addressing climate change, resource saving and management, the circular economy, as discussed in one of our panels yesterday, environmental protection, ecosystem protection, water conservation, natural disaster prevention. And yesterday we were so delighted to have the Councillor of Water and Environmental Affairs from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Denmark, who spoke quite profoundly about water preservation to say South Africa and also other African countries, it's not that we don't have enough water, we're just wasteful in our water supply. And how do we then develop other means to preserve our resources and to preserve water as well? Even the cost of water, as he had mentioned yesterday, in South Africa is more than some of the European countries, such as Denmark. So these are critical conversations that we'll be having today, particularly where supply chain development is important and where we can advance SMMEs through that. It will be very interesting to note that issues such as corruption do come in when it comes to enterprise development and endorsing certain companies within procurement and so forth. It will be great to then explore how does triple BEE scorecard work in this regard when it comes to developing SMMEs within the economy, the green economy, and also making sure that we support them. Should it end at support, how else are we capacitating them? Because we know that with capital venture, a lot is needed when it comes to building the recycling economy and also creating awareness in our communities. Are we having organizations that are supporting communities and other individuals around corporate social responsibility initiatives when it comes to waste management, when it comes to developing, once again, the green economy or other value chains in the green economy? So I look forward to having a panel discussion around supply chain sustainability practices in order to succeed. What must be delivered to ensure that we improve environmental performance within financially viable operating construct? And we know we want to hear from different corporates. What is their strategy going forward as we've been hit by the COVID pandemic? What are the changes that are going to happen in supply chain development? What amendments are going to be made to procurement when it comes to micro enterprises and also SMMEs? And we'll be joined by a great panel of speakers after this break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sustainability Summit. Once again, if you've just joined us, welcome. And indeed, I hope you've been having a great 2 days like we have. Thought-provoking conversations, challenging conversations. And we believe that you can take it in your space and introduce it to colleagues, to companies, even as a part of policy formation and development within your distinct constituencies. Once again, as mentioned, that we are kickstarting this session with sustainable enterprise and supply chain development, and we have an amazing panel from different backgrounds, very strategic, who will be offering their insights about how do we ensure that sustainable practices are introduced in the supply chain space to ensure that we deliver financially viable operating constructs, as well as everything needing to be in line with environmental practices. Joining me on the panel is Mr. Guru Kali, who is representing Brenda Kali as the CEO of Conscious Company. So welcome to you, Guru. We also have Dr. Rudy Kimi, who's the CEO of Tsiba Business School. We have Lita, Mr. Lita Kuta, who's the Director for Enterprise and Supply Development at Tiger Brands. We also have Guantari Mja or Maja, who's the project manager at CSIR. We also have Dr. Joe Ash Macheto, who's the senior lecturer at Transport and Supply Chain Management School of Management. I'm not too sure which institution that is, but I trust that in the introductions we'll be told more about the organizations and so forth. To our panelists, welcome to all of you, and thank you very much for allotting time to be with us this morning. I will ask maybe Guru Kali if you can just introduce yourself, the organization, and your inputs around the topic, and then we'll have Lita from Tiger Brands. We'll then have Kimi, Dr. Kimi, and then we will have Joe Ash, and then we will have Miss, I don't know if it's Miss or it's Mr. Maja.
project manager of CSIR, but I'm assuming that it's a miss because it's the only lady on the panel. So in that order, colleagues, we will then begin.
Cool. Morning, everyone. As you heard, my name is Guru. I do the executive training for the Conscious Leadership Academy in partnership with, as you heard, Conscious Companies, which is the mother brand. We work with various entities, mostly in private sector, specifically leadership and executives, to instill a sense of consciousness within the leaders, um, hopefully through experiential processes that we engage with them in, for them to experience an altered state of reality beyond what most humans are used to experiencing within our five senses, and understanding the way that we process reality as humans, um, and then take these leaders, as we call them, engage them in processes, and allow them to have a sensation whereby their consciousness expands, somewhat much like how the astronauts kind of have experienced and noted, is that when they go out into space, for the first time, they see the planet as a whole from that distance, from that perspective. Their awareness of what is their reality shifts, it changes. And all of a sudden, seeing the planet from that distance, it creates what they call the observer effect. And some of the symptoms that are associated with it is a sense of benevolence, seeing the planet for the first time without borders, without any restrictions, and coming back and not rationally then deciding that the best practice for my business, in this case, for this webinar, would be sustainability practices, or what would be the best way to unlock funding from the government, which way is process and policy leaning, and which way should we lean our business towards it in order to maximize profit. Instead, these leaders have these experiences and sensations of wanting to do good for the sake of doing good, for no other reason except for that it is self-effulgent. It comes from within. And when that consciousness of the individual shifts, especially in terms of leadership as a captain of a ship, then the business automatically starts to drive towards that ethos and that purpose. And instilling those values, that consciousness, that awareness of the purpose of the business is pretty much what we deal with. And for some reason, there seems to be a strong overlap with interests that deal with sustainability of resources, of supply chain, and entities within businesses that have an understanding that businesses are not separate entities towards the communities in which they exist. The old extractionist policy of coming into an environment, whereas a nation and extracting the resources for one's own self gain, or then as a business working within an environment and extracting as much as you can, as much value as you can from your human resources, from your asset resources, and getting as much as you can as a shareholder, and taking that taker approach. Instead, these leaders then come with a giver approach of understanding that the business is a part of the community. And if we talk sustainability, when we talk vision with our leaders, we talk a minimum of 100 years beyond the scope of the lifespan of the leader. In that way, we can ensure that their interests, their self-interests are mitigated, and that there is a more keen awareness, a more heightened sensation towards the environment in which they exist, and an understanding that if I'm just taking, eventually there won't be any more money or any more resources for my business to grow. So in order for me to sustain myself as a business, I need to feed back into the environment, which in turn feeds back into the business. And that's how we create longevity. Then we can be signing those 99-year contracts like the Queen. So that's pretty much what we do as Conscious Company. There are obviously various manifestations of that. There's a training arm, In the Conscious Leadership Academy, there's Conscious Companies, which has several advocacy programs, specifically the Conscious Companies Awards being the most notable, where we honor, celebrate some of these businesses that have that sense of purpose and ethos coming from within, not just because they wish to maximize on the current rhetoric or narrative of green that seems to be permeating our society. And then we have various dialogues as well, and a few other events that we have, a summit that we have, a conscious leadership summit that we have within the year as well. So various things in where we engage with leaders, and that's pretty much what we do.
Cool. Thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing more about it. Thank you. Lita?
Thanks, Tabang. Those are nice words to really open up the discussion. I work for Tiger Brands. My role there is to look after small business development, supply development, and supply chain transformation. And I mean, it's an environment that is stemming from a bigger issue of redress in the country, where we've been having sorry, I've got a little child who's here. Okay, sorry. So we come from a country that is very impoverished. We come where there was apartheid, and part of sustainability is that when there was an end of apartheid, it was really to bring South Africa that it was not sustainable, right? And we had to make sure that we start going to the new dispensation. And part of that was to deal with issues of redress and making sure that Black people are able to be integrated into the economy, to participate not only at an ownership level, but to make sure that they can also participate in supply chains. And that talks about the sustainability of the country itself, because you want a thriving economy, because when people are thriving, the economy is going to thrive, right? So from our side, the way we see sustainability talks to societal transformation. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay. Sorry. So we gotta be able to make sure that we look at our supply chain transformation policies, and we gotta entrench that Black people in South Africa needs to be part of it, because if it's not gonna be a sustainable country, right? Because there will be riots everywhere, because the issue around a class issue and also not having disparity in income creates a very big problem in terms of having a country that is governable, right? So from an enterprise and supply development, our role is to make sure that we help society to get into these opportunities that are in the private sector. That's the one part of it. Secondly, as Tiger Brands, we've got more than 40 factories across the country, and they are situated where there are communities similar to mines. And some of these communities are very poor. So part of what we need to do is make sure that we play a meaningful role to uplift the lives of the people in those communities. Otherwise, they're going to make those factories not to be, operational. And when that happens, it affects the whole supply chain of the company. So you need to make sure that you are in touch with society and communities, and you do transformation by making sure that you can develop them, right? Shh. Okay, sorry. And then also the critical thing that we need to look at, right, is the whole notion of that Tiger Brands buys a lot of packaging. So some of our packaging ends at sea, right? It starts to erode other things, and that is a behavior of the customers that we are serving. That when we sell these packages, no one knows where it lands. So part of what we're doing from a Tiger Brands is really to drive the issue of sustainability sourcing of our packaging, making sure that we've got packaging that is not harmful to society. But at the same time, how do you create then a circular economy of supporting local communities to be part of that green economy, where they are able to be part of the recycling, environment, but not just end there. They also need to be in the processing part of it, right? Because we can't subject our people to just merely be collectors of waste, but not processors of waste. So those are the things that we start to look at the Tiger Brands. And because we are the biggest food manufacturer, we gotta lead with these things. We gotta make sure that not only are we having the right policies that make sure that our suppliers are sourcing correctly, that we ourselves sourcing correctly. And in that sourcing, we make sure that our communities are brought in to be part of benefiting from that value chain that is created by the green economy, because very few Black people are playing in that space. And it's a big industry. There are big targets of making sure that we use certain percentages of recycled material where on our packaging. And what is needed is that as a sector, we need to start collaborating to make sure that we can work together. I mean, I'm happy that Tsiba is here, because part of the issue is education, that our people don't know these things. These things are foreign. It's similar if you look at the whole issue around the hemp and cannabis industry. Our people used to be arrested for it, and today it's legalized. They are nowhere in the economy of it, right? Multinationals are coming in and taking those opportunities, which we thought locals were going to benefit from that. So we've got a moral obligation to make sure that as leaders, we make sure we create opportunities for our communities to participate in this value chain, more especially in the green economy, because unfortunately, it's not a topic that our people know very much.
Thank you very much, Lita. Thank you for those inputs. We look forward to engaging further. Quite thought-provoking points there. Okay, and we have Dr. Rudy.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Tsiba Business School. It's a young business school that's located in the very vibrant suburb of Woodstock. Our primary focus areas are to make education, higher education, accessible to young people from marginalized communities, those who don't have the financial or even the academic skills to enter into the public sector higher education institutions. Our focus are, in addition to that, we primarily focus on leadership and self-development. We also develop entrepreneurial skills, and ultimately we hope to transform society. We hope to transform the business sector, and we're hoping to make sustainability much more integrated into the discourse, not only at an academic level, but also at the practical level within society. You know, the word sustainability is trending at the moment because with COVID-19, we have realized how fragile our lives really are on this planet. However, I think we need to elevate sustainability to more than just a balance sheet item. Many companies talk about planet, profit, people. They talk about environment, social and governance, etc. But these are slogans. They are not integrated into the practice of how we live on this planet. And I think that there's a healthy tension between profitability and sustainability. However, sustainability is more than just the longevity of how long a company can trade. Sustainability for me is how long can we make the planet habitable so that every single living entity, whether it's plant, animal, or human, can survive and thrive on the planet. And therefore, sustainability is a state of mind. And we need to see how we can teach it at a young age. So from an educational level, it's too late to talk about sustainability when someone enters tertiary education. We need to start with sustainability at the primary school level, even before then. People need to learn how do they live in the planet, how do they get rid of their waste, for example, how do we reduce plastics, how do we try to reduce carbon emissions. And I'm very much aware that our entire economic model is based on this. The more cars we sell, the more car companies thrive. The more people buy, the consumers consume things, the more companies like Tiger Brand protect their shareholder value. But these are short-term in terms of the sustainability that I'm looking for. If we look at the planet, it's been around for a couple of billion years. In 1955, the population on the Earth was approximately 2 billion people. 65 years later, in 2020, We are close to 8 billion people on the planet.
Mm.
And you can already see the impact of this. This city that I'm living in, Cape Town, two and a half years ago had a serious water crisis. So sustainability is a much, much bigger and a much more profound issue than we often talk about, that we think about. We see it primarily in economic terms. The economy is very, very important. And at the first base, I want to support economic development because I think our human society is dependent on that. But in parallel to that, we need to expand the consciousness of sustainability towards impacting how we live with each other and primarily how we live on the planet. Our sea resources, our land resources, our mineral wealth, our humanity, all of that needs to be integrated at a much more practical level. So I'm very glad that we're having this discussion, and I hope that out of this, there will be some real tangible steps coming out, steps to transform the thinking, the paradigms, and more importantly, to transform the practices of people and private and public sector companies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kimi, and we look forward to engaging further, particularly on those points around education. And I think it's a beautiful, linkage between what Guru spoke about when it comes to conscious leadership, and how can we be more conscious about our education, and how can we consciously lead education as a country. So very beautiful interlinkage there. Can we then have Guantari Maja, Project Manager CSIR? Please introduce yourself and your organization, and also what valuable contributions you have towards the topic.
Thanks, Tawang. Good morning, everybody. My name is Guantari Maja, and I represent the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Specifically within the CSIR, I form part of a team that is focused on transforming industry to adopt more sustainable practices, but not only from a climate change or environmental management perspective as well, but we recognize that sustainability and adopting better environmental practices actually has a great business case. We work with industry across all different sectors of the economy, and we transform through education, through skills development, through awareness raising, and also through technology support, and introducing just a new way of thinking. And we work with them to implement long-term processes and practices to transform how they actually run their production processes. So for me, particularly, the issue of sustainability has taken a new turn, especially in light of COVID and the green recovery that we all are focusing on. I've seen over the years with companies that we've worked with, there's been more of a just single company focus. So you're only focusing on what is happening within your borders or within your company premises. But I think COVID has taught us that we are more interlinked than we think. And what I would like to see a change happening is where there's more collaboration and partnership, because the way I see it, when it comes to resources such as energy, when it comes to environmental factors such as water and clean air, we all share that. And there is great room for partnership, for sharing best practices across industries. And of course, I would like us to eliminate scenarios where you only have pockets of excellence across value chains. We want to ensure that all actors that participate in a value chain elevate their level of resource efficiency, because when we ultimately do that, the end users, which we are all saving, our customers, end up benefiting, and of course, the environment at large.
Thank you very much.
Hoping to also just share the practical solutions and resources that the National Cleaner Production Center is there to provide industries that are serious about transforming, that are also serious about moving the issue around sustainability from just what looks good on paper. I've seen with industries that I've worked with over the past 8 years or so, everything looks good on paper, but when you dig deeper and actually assess the extent to which sustainability is embedded in how the business is run, find that there are gaps there. So I would like that transformation to also happen. I look forward to what we're going to engage in. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maja. Can we have Dr. Joash Macheto? Hey, Joash, you're still on mute? And we can take a picture of the memes.
All right. Thank you. Sorry for that. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this discussion. It's really a very important discussion for our continent and also for the country. Now, as you've heard, my name is Dr. Joash Mageto. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Johannesburg. Essentially, I teach logistics and supply chain management, and most of the what we call the hot topics right now are around sustainability, green supply chain management, green logistics, green transport. Those are the issues that we are handling right now in terms of in-class engagement and also in research. Now, when we talk about sustainability, one of the main things that comes into mind, especially when you talk of industry, is the bottom line. Yeah. Because sustainability is usually expensive. Organizations will usually have to dedicate some resources towards sustainability agenda. But then we look at it from our end as triple bottom line, whereby you don't only look at the bottom line in terms of the economics in the organization or profitability only, but you look at it in terms of what are we doing in terms of the social sustainability. How does the organization engage with the communities where they are doing business? How do they engage with government institutions when it comes to issues sustainability? And also, how do they engage with the environment in terms of the materials that they are using, that maybe the mining that they are doing? How do they take care of the environment so that we can live a better world than we found it? So triple bottom line becomes a very important thing. But then it's not going to be easy to achieve this if we don't think sustainability across the whole supply chain, whereby we start thinking of sustainability right from sourcing. When organizations are doing sourcing for their materials, that, we believe that is the point where sustainability should start from. Then through the procurement process, they should procure what is sustainable. That one of thinking right from when the materials will be sourced to the point where you are going to dispose the goods or the products that you have manufactured. It goes on, and we think about the packaging. What type of packaging are you going to use? Now, some countries have come up with laws whereby they want package sustainable packages, but some have not. And for those countries which have not done that, we expect that the business community should move forward and implement this, so that we get to a point where we are not doing sustainability because the law wants us to do it. We are not doing sustainability because we are being forced to do it, but we are doing it for the goodness of the environment where we are staying. We are doing it for the goodness of the communities where we are doing business. And also, of course, for economic sustainability, we have to do it responsibly and make profits. Now, another big issue that comes up is the issue of sustainability measurement. And we say you cannot control what you cannot measure. There is no way you can say we are doing very well in terms of sustainability, and then you are not measuring it. So you must have ways of measuring sustainability. And if you are measuring, then you must report it. And because if you are not reporting it, then you are not creating awareness. You have to make it possible for your customers, for your business partners to know what you are doing in terms of sustainability. And these are the issues that we are handling in universities. And these are the engagements that we are having with the students and also with the business community. Maybe thank you for the time being.
Thank you very much there, Dr. Joash. I think you've provided great inputs for us to explore in this discussion. So I'll be asking a couple of questions just inferred from your introductory statements. And let me just start with Dr. Kimi, and then I'll come to you, Lita. You mentioned something critical there, Dr. Kimi. You spoke about the existence of a healthy tension between sustainability and profitability. Can you just explain that a little bit? We just want to delve a bit deeper on that. It was a very interesting point. And then we'll have Lita after that. There's also a leading question there. Dr. Kimi, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. And I think it links to the point that Dr. Joash made, where companies have to ensure their own sustainability through being able to earn a healthy profit.
Yes.
And profitability is at the heart of the capitalist system. And companies sustain themselves through profit. However, in the pursuit of profit, we also need to see, are we not blind spotting the fact that our pursuit for profit, it makes us ignore some of the broader issues which impact on society.
Right.
So look at, for example, the whole packaging industry. It is easy, if you walk into a supermarket right now, you'll see that everything is packaged. And it's beautifully presented. And I think it plays into the minds that consumers like to see things neatly wrapped and packed and everything. However, every single package that you find there probably will end somewhere in the bin, in the etc., and ultimately in the ocean. So we need to see it's this healthy tension is something that we need to become comfortable with. As long as we live in a capitalist society, we will always have this healthy tension. However, we need to try to mitigate this tension in the sense that we can pursue profit. And I think it's important that we do so. But at the same time, let us do it within a broader sustainability framework. Let us put pressure on companies who are involved in packaging to do the kinds of packaging that is biodegradable. Let us look at the companies that produce the soaps and the lotions, etc., so that they can make biodegradable products. I think it is very, very, very important to do so. Someone said to me that the youth will inherit the earth 100%. There's no doubt about that. That when this generation passes away, the youth will inherit the earth. But what kind of earth are we bequeathing to our youth? What planet are we handing over? And I think it is absolutely critical that we view sustainability with a long-term perspective in mind, rather than just how do we protect the short-term profits and a company that survives 10, 15, or 20 years. We need to be sure that we can create longevity for hundreds, thousands, millions of years. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I think you're quite right in terms of leaving the earth for young people. They're going to inherit everything. So do they inherit an earth full of problems or full of opportunities? So quite a great comment there. Thank you, Dr. Kimi. Lita, you spoke about Tiger Brands initiatives, particularly around, SMME development, community developments. What are the trends that you've noticed? So, for example, what are the emerging post-recovery supply chain trends that you've noticed? And also, most importantly, how is Tiger Brands involving communities and SMMEs in their sustainability agenda? And then after that, we'll have Guru there. Yes,
Okay,
Lita, you
thanks.
can go ahead.
Thank you for that. I mean, we, as I said, because we play a huge role. I mean, what Dr. Rudy is saying in terms of the packaging that you find it at stores, the
Yes.
bulk of it comes from our company because we take a lot of space in the retailing environment, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, we are starting now. I mean, we've got a sustainability strategy that we did last year, where we've got very clear goals in terms of the way we manage, our electricity emissions, the packaging, making it more lighter, right?
Yeah.
And also starting to invest in areas where there's a serious recycling so that things don't end up at the ocean, right? Because we gotta be able to play a role, because if our ways of doing business are creating this packaging, we gotta be also part of the solution to make sure that it's not harmful to society. And the issue that then a person like me looks at is how transformed is that industry, the green economy industry, because I gotta be able to make sure that it's beneficial to everyone in the country, and everyone is able to play a meaningful role from a revenue generation. So I mean, we are looking at multiple of interventions. So if you look at the community level, we're starting to work with schools and recycling projects at schools, even at primary school, right? Because you need kids to start being sensitized around these things at the school level. But some of these projects are creating revenue for the schools by doing the collections, right? Part of the key thing around this also, because it's a circular economy, you gotta have procurement processes and procurement policies that forces your suppliers to buy sustainable. So the suppliers that we deal with that are supplying us the packaging has to make sure that they do green sourcing when they source the raw material and inputs they are using, right? And then it doesn't become just a Tiger Brands issue, but our level of influence also has to cascade into the supply chain. I think Dr. Jones did mention that the whole notion around logistics and supply chain is coupled with companies that are active and doing things that are affecting sustainability. And if we, companies like ourselves, as the big buyers of those products, are not putting rules of the game to make sure that from their sourcing, they source correctly. And if they're not, other suppliers who are actually doing green sourcing are able to be given opportunities to be part of the supply chain. Because unfortunately, in the space that we work with, you gotta be able to go and transform those suppliers to change their ways to which they procure. And if they don't, you gotta be able to open up space for alternative suppliers. That is where now Black suppliers in my industry starts to come in. And looking at how we are integrating communities, as you said, because we're in agriculture, right? We make food. We are a huge buyer of agricultural products, right? And we've started processes now. We've got more than 300 Black farmers that are supplying us currently, right? When I started 2 years ago, we barely had 50 suppliers, right? We've got about 300 now. We've also started an aggregator program where we say Black people have to start to aggregate in the agriculture space. You cannot just subject them to be primary agriculture only, because if you look at the supply chain of industry of agriculture, you'll find there are big firms who are aggregating smaller farmers, and they're supplying to industry at scale. So we are starting to involve communities at the primary agriculture, but at the second layer, we are also developing Black aggregators that are supplying us at scale, because Tiger Brands buys at scale. It becomes counterproductive to be dealing with too many small suppliers, right? But because now we've created a buffer where we say to black aggregators, go out and find black farmers, we'll give you a contract and we'll make sure you buy from them. But part of it is to make sure that we regulate price to which farmers that are doing primary agriculture are being paid. But also when you look at sustainability, part of it is what are their farming techniques that they're using in terms of pesticides, right? Because you don't want them to erode the soil in the manner to which they plant. So sustainability is a critical element right to when they start doing their farming planning, right until the product reaches the plate at home. And the whole value chain needs to be managed very closely in terms of making sure that it's sustainability friendly and also that it benefits the communities that they play a role in those value chains across so that they are able to generate revenue because you need sustainable communities and part of it is to create an opportunity for them to be able to have income. And we know that if community starts to get income, they start buying more. So it's a mutual benefiting arrangement, right? That when you develop these communities, they buy more, they increase demand, and then the private sector starts to benefit by supplying those goods and services that are required by our society. But what we've also seen from a trend is that now companies are starting to look at localization, which is very exciting. You might have seen the clothing industry starting to say, you know what, we need to buy our clothing and textile locally. As Tiger Brands, we have already started to do import replacement, where we are looking at things that we are buying internationally that actually can be made in the country, but we're putting effort, we're putting money, we're putting resources to stimulate that local demand. Because part of doing that is that we're creating customers, right? The more you buy outside, the more you deprive local economic development, you're actually going to run out of customers, most especially in the environment that we have, where unemployment is rising. You know, you're going to have products where people are not buying because they're unemployed, because the opportunities are created elsewhere, right? So the localization is becoming exciting. Import replacement is something that is really coming on board. Most of other companies that I talk to are starting to talk about buying local, buying, but also that comes with how do we also deploy capital and resources to develop those communities. I think for us, that is where the conundrum is making sure that we don't just localize, but we put money to build the capacity of our local entrepreneurs to be upscaled and capacitated in terms of skills and also access to finance, right? So that they are able to produce the products, now with the new demand of all the volumes that were originally going outside of the country that are being localized.
Thank you so much for that. 100%. Sure. Yeah, no. The bar is so high on this panel. Now my brain is just going zing, 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 zing. I'm thinking all these ideas. We don't even have a lot of time. Guru, please can you just come in there? How does conscious leadership fit into, sustainable development or enterprise sustainable development? And I mean, you mentioned something so critical in your opening to say, we need to achieve some kind of environmental benevolence. How do we do that? So just maybe interlinked to that question, you can just answer, how does conscious leadership, fit into enterprise sustainable development or supply development? And also, how do we achieve environmental benevolence, especially with how we do business?
It seems to be left in the hands of people who lead business. It's a question of leadership. Consciousness always manifests, whether it is a consciousness that leads towards destructive behavior or a creative behavior, either way. But when we look at current leaders, government is pretty much useless all around the world. We've got totalitarian regimes still going on, whether it's China with the people in Hong Kong or putting Liger people in internment camps, or the Russian people who also seem to be taking quite a firm stance. America just got rid of a president who is building a wall to keep another ethnicity out. The story has been told for hundreds of years, whether it's Mongolians oppressing Europeans or Europeans oppressing Africans. It's a cycle that seems to be continuing. And governments have this approach. Now we sit on a precipice where you have a carbon budget, a CO2 budget that is fast being depleted before, as a society, environmentally at least, we are reaching this event horizon where we may have so much pollution on the planet that we cross that threshold before we can rein it back in. It will have to recycle itself. And if that means eradicating a Mars, on a moon of Jupiter, to get these resources for us. What is the government busy with? They're busy with whether we should care for another race of people across an invisible line. This is the small mentality that we seem to still be playing at. 20 years ago, I was finishing my undergrad degree, and that dude came out with that movie, The Inconvenient Truth. And then there was The Inconvenient Truth 2. Then Leo came out with his movie. And for years and years and decades, we've still been discussing this policy of where do we draw the line? How much leeway do we allow the developing world to catch up and still have the leeway to use old technology that is detrimental to the environment? And where can we shift the budget? And there was a meme that I had seen about it where it says, is there some kind of tax that we can pay to stop COVID, or does that only work with climate change? And this is the whole thing. Where do we draw the line? Where do we say, oh, no, it's okay. We still have a developing world. Let them use old technology. Let's not put a firm stance on a specific society, on the whole humanity, on when it reaches, where do we put that point? And that's in the hands of leaders, that decision. So working with leaders is critical to make that decision. And where do we draw the line? We have the ability. The ability is there. We're able to lock down an entire planet where you can't leave your house in an instant. So we're able to make drastic decisions and change, and the human being will adapt. We've adapted, we've overcome. We even see a silver lining around the dark cloud, where people have had a chance to reconnect with themselves, realign what they believe is important to them. At the same time, in the business world, we've had a good shakeup. The dead weight that has been sucking debt has seemed to have been shaken off the dog, like fleas off a dog. And then the businesses that are able to sustain themselves are able to move forward and hopefully grow and sustain. But how do we sustain it? Where do we draw the line?
Yep.
So dealing with the leaders, if we're going to leave it to metrics, if we're going to leave it to governance principles, it's going to be a tick box exercise, and people are going to find loopholes and shortcomings around it the way that they've always done. For me, the only way one is able to do it is if we instill that sense of purpose within these leaders, raise their level of consciousness to their level of awareness to a place where they understand at an internal level that the long-term effects of their individual self-interested behavior is detrimental for their children. Again, like Rudy said, what do we bequeath to our kids? So yes, from a leadership perspective, that for me, when we say an environmental benevolence, that benevolence, again, it's internal, it's self-effulgent, whether it's towards the environment, whether it's towards whatever it is. Oppression is oppression, right? Whether it's towards another race, another ethnicity, another sexual preference, another creature or species to you, oppression is oppression. How does one develop that sensitivity internally so that the human being is able to understand that they are connected to this seemingly other, thinking and assuming that we are attempting to save nature without the understanding that we are nature trying to save itself. So these are the kind of questions that we ask from a level of consciousness. For us, it's exposure. How do we take that person and expose them to a domain of consciousness, an altered state of reality where they're able to see beyond their history, beyond their own lenses of perception and the filters that they carry with them through life that they seemingly unavoidably seem to be victim to.
Thank you very much, Guru. Wantari, maybe you can just tell us which are the most promising, green economy spaces for SMMEs to branch into. I mean, you spoke about having practical, solutions for SMME development and also sustainability. Maybe you can advise us, what are the promising spaces for SMMEs to branch into, particularly where the green economy or where the term sustainability is concerned?
One of the areas that we've seen as a great opportunity, particularly for small, medium enterprises and also Black entrepreneurs as well, it's been in the area of industrial symbiosis and waste upscaling. So we at the NCPC, we're running a program where we connect entrepreneurs, small, medium enterprises, to actually take waste from big corporations and turn it into goods that have more value. And we are generating newer companies through these efforts. We're breaking silos, and one of the areas that we've found is that those enterprises don't necessarily know which doors to knock at. They don't know which companies they can partner with. They don't know which type of waste resources exist, but they've got the solutions and the technology to turn those waste material into actually beneficial products. So we work in a space where we become mediators, because we work with industries, we know the amount of waste that gets produced. We know the amount of waste that we're battling with managing at landfill site. And we're creating a database of entrepreneurs who can come up with new technologies and processes to actually, Lita mentioned the issue of turning our people from just being waste collectors, but actually developing enterprises where they're processing the waste and adding more value and selling that at a higher price. So that's one area that we are, particularly at the NCPC, is focusing on around issues of small, medium enterprise and green economy participation. I also want to just expand on the point that was mentioned earlier around this tension that exists for profits and sustainability. And I mean, if you look at what goes into making profit, it's the equation around sales and also costs. So we, particularly at the NCPC, we focus on the cost element of that profit making equation. And I must admit that we've seen that, although, yes, it's true that transformation for sustainable practices will require capital, there still are areas where you don't necessarily need a lot of capital to realize the benefits that green practices exist. In our understanding, there are some basics that I think industries are still not tapping into. I must admit also that there are still areas where companies can really reduce their operating cost and also then balance that profit-making exercise. We work in factories where we find that money is literally going down the drain just because, for example, leaks are not getting fixed. There's water leaks around the plant, there's compressed air leaks around the plant, and all of that eats into the profit of the organization. So we see resource efficiency, particularly energy and water, as one of the areas that can also just elevate the profit making and the economic equation around sustainability. And I think industry still hasn't explored the opportunities that exist in that space.
Thank you very much for that. Dr. Joe Ash, just as an extension from your comments, I was very intrigued by how you looked at sustainability from a logistics perspective. You spoke about green logistics. So I just want to find out from you in your class and in your narration as well of green logistics, what does that mean, under the consideration of sustainability? And also, how should organizations think when they consider greening their supply chains? Maybe you can just link or merge those two questions. So, how should organizations think when they consider greening their supply chains? And also, just to maybe give us a brief synopsis around green logistics. What does that mean, and how does it apply in the logistics space?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Now, yeah, green logistics is a very interesting area because when we talk of logistics, we look at it as a system that is interlinked, so that we do not think of logistics as transport, as warehousing,
Yes.
as maybe inventory management or packaging, but then we think of logistics as a whole system that needs to be managed. So when we talk of green logistics, what we are advising of, especially the business community, is them having a green logistics package, whereby who do they have as their transport? Is that organization that is doing their transport, is it applying green management or green supply chain or sustainability? Does it implement sustainability? Of course, we know some organizations that do implement sustainability, and they also do sustainability measurement. They even have a sustainability department. So we expect that this should be your partners if you have a sustainability agenda in your organization. When it comes to packaging, who is packaging your materials, or how do you package your goods? Is the organization, maybe you have outsourced, the organization that you have outsourced, does it have a green agenda? And does it implement it? So it's all about making sure that the whole logistics process, as you move the goods, the raw materials from your supplier, you bring them into the organization. As you manufacture them, transform them, and transport them to the final customers, all those activities, they should be performed with sustainability in mind. So it means you as the business, as the organization, take sustainability as part of the business and implement it in each and every activity. And you don't stop there, but then also the products that you are manufacturing, those products, you must think how you are going to dispose those products. During disposal, what's going to happen? We've seen, especially electronic goods, they are all over. They are all over. They are in the seas, they are in land. And some of these products are toxic. They have emissions. And think of the rural communities. They don't know how to dispose these goods. So why are the manufacturers of these products not having a way of collecting them back and maybe recycling them? Because maybe my mom has bought a television set in the rural areas. She has used it for maybe 10 years. It's no longer useful. Where is she going to dispose it?
Yes.
It's a question that we need to answer. These organizations, but they are able to sell up to that level, but they are not able to manage their waste up to that level. And these are the questions we need to think of. These are the questions we need to ask the business community. Yes, it will take some of their reserves in terms of profits, but then it is worth it for the community. It's worth it for the community. When you think of green logistics, you go and think of sustainability, you go to an extra mile where you think of also your employees. How do your employees fit in the sustainability agenda of your organization? You can have a very good policy on sustainability, but the policy is just on book. But your employees don't even know about it. You have not trained them on sustainability. So when we talk of green logistics, it's the whole package. You are managing the logistics as a whole package, as a system, so that you can be able to achieve the agenda. So that, because it will not make sense if you have green transport, whereby the vehicles are using fuel efficient engines, but then what the vehicles are transporting are goods packaged in non-sustainable materials. Then you cancel out whatever that you've done. So you have to do it as a whole package. And for organizations, for business community that want to engage in sustainability, what we try to discuss and also research in is that organizations should avoid what we call greenwashing, whereby you are advertising sustainability, but you're not implementing it. There's nothing sustainable that you are doing, but then you are advertising that you are doing it. And that is why we insist on sustainability measurement and sustainability reporting, whereby you must have KPIs for sustainability, key performance indicators. And then you report on these key performance indicators. To what extent did you reduce greenhouse gases emissions? To what extent? Is it 20%? Is it 50%? Then you set targets for the following year, and you try as much as possible to achieve that. You report on energy efficiency. To what extent did you reduce the fossil fuel energy usage, especially? And how efficient will you be in the following year? Now, there is something I was taught long back in campus, and it was about that we should not view water as a social resource, but we should view it as an economic resource. And we expect organizations to report on water efficiency. It's a serious thing. It looks a simple thing, but it's a very serious thing. How do organizations report this? So we expect to see the social and environmental performance reports from organizations.
Yep.
And these reports are the ones that will create awareness to industry, will create awareness to their partners, and will also create awareness to their customers that sustainability is important. Now, a very simple example. If we have one of the top companies in South Africa or in Africa talking sustainability on a serious note, all the other companies will start talking about it. Because when industry leaders take sustainability serious, the followers will also take it serious.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kiwi, just come in there. What advice would you give to business or organizations around improving their, supply chain development? What advice would you give? And then after Dr. Kimi, would have Lita, and then we'll have you, Wantari, and then we'll just start wrapping up the conversations.
Well, you know, I want to endorse the comment made by Dr. Joash about,
Yep.
you know, reporting and keeping ourselves accountable.
Yes.
However, you know, when people seem to have a metric where they they hold themselves accountable, they seem to be confined by that metric. When I started this conversation today, I said that sustainability is a state of mind.
Right.
It's about a broad consciousness, and it's about holding ourselves accountable because we look at the bigger picture. And until we see the bigger picture, it must exceed only looking at KPIs and metrics that to say, look, I've ticked this box now, and that's it. This year is a critical issue. If you look at the natural disasters impacting the planet, it has risen exponentially. Whether you're talking about floods, whether you're talking about veld fires, whether you're talking about health problems, it has risen exponentially. And until we are able to remove the blind spots that are handicapping us, we will never, ever be truly sustainable. So sustainability is hard work. It really requires a different paradigm of looking at the world and looking at our practices and behaving. You know, I posted a comment in the chat box, and where Alvin Toffler in 1970 said that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So we have to relearn, how do we define profitability? We need to relearn, how do we define sustainability? You know, if you look at the, so as a business school, we focus very much on disruption and innovation. We need to teach young people how to be innovative. If I think of this South African example, a young man a couple of years ago, I think his name is Ludwig Marishani. He started a company called Dry Wash, where you can use this gel and use it for hygienic purposes, and it doesn't require water. We have some of our students who started a open streets in Cape Town, where through cycling, and I think some of that has translated to where young people were using bicycles to take medicines to the gogos in the townships who couldn't go to the clinics. If you look at Airbnb, Airbnb is the largest sort of hospitality company in the world without owning a single hotel room. So they don't have to invest in building hotels. They repurpose the bedrooms that are not being used, the garages that are not being used, and the same with Uber. Uber doesn't own a vehicle, it uses your vehicle. So we need to create, take sustainability and explode it into its multiple opportunities so that young people can, you know, when people talk about the circular economy, if you go into your house where you are, there are a number of things there which can be repurposed into multiple uses. But we've become these kind of species of disposers. Whatever we don't use, we throw away. We are a disposal society. We dispose people, we dispose things, we dispose everything without realizing that there is a massive impact and we are paying the price already. We are paying the price. It's visible. It's, if you just walk out your door, you can see that we are paying the price in terms of poverty, in terms of the decline in the environment. So we really need to step up our game. We need to take what we do, we need to talk about it, we need to become activists about it, we need to teach it, our children, our students, we need to talk to our friends, our neighbors, we need to apply pressure along the value chains that we are connected with. If we can do that, then I think sustainability in its true sense will become part and parcel of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you there, Dr. Kimi. Lita, maybe you can also come in here as an extension from what Dr. Kimi was saying. I think you both mentioned quite critical points around our historical trajectory and where we are, particularly when it comes to Black industrialization and so forth. I don't want to ask what opportunities are available for SMMEs because opportunities will always be there, but I don't think that people are aware of how they should tackle them. For example, sustainability right now to a SMME is a very big term. So maybe Lita, you can give us advice on what should communities do, or what should SMMEs do to capacitate themselves in understanding the narrative of sustainability. Because once you understand sustainability, you will understand what is expected of you as an organization and as a business. And then we
Yes.
can now talk about delivering a healthy value chain and a healthy supply chain. And that's where the conversation can start about supply chain development. But what can they do in their own spaces to participate, for example, in procurement processes such as Tiger brands, or to even apply in their perspective?
Sure. Right. I'll answer it in two ways because this is very critical. So if you look at public procurement, what is it known for? Every tender has to be known by the public so that those who are interested can participate.
Right.
In private sector, we use what is called a closed tender system. You will never see a single tender that is in private sector. No one has seen it, even people that are here in this panel, and even those that are watching, because it works on a network. People get invited in. So because of that closeness, it becomes difficult first to answer your question to say what can they do, because they don't know.
Oh.
So that's why I said I want to answer it in two ways. The first thing, as corporates, we've got a responsibility to tell people exactly how things work.
Sure.
We have to, because we're making people to write exams and yet they don't know the curriculum.
Exactly.
We gotta tell them the opportunities, where they are, how are they structured, what's going on in the sector. And those are easy information. Those are not secrets. You know, that's why, I mean, with the whole COVID has created now that we can do webinars. I can talk about agriculture and people will have penny drop moments. Say, you know what, for an example, something as simple as grains in South Africa. South Africa imports 50% of grains. Whether it's wheat, it's maize, it's sorghum, we import 50%. As an entrepreneur, what does that tell you? It tells you there's an opportunity to localize. But if I didn't say this, none of you would know. You're right. So if we have to make sure that we've got this, you know, an economy where our people, most especially Black people, get exposed to the knowledge, to the insights of what's happening. Where are those opportunities?
Yeah.
Because that is why most of our Black entrepreneurs, what they see is what they do. By the time they see it, someone is already doing it. They are too late in the game.
Yeah.
Because those that are doing it got insights and networks to get the information. So they become pathfinders. They can do it first. And that makes our Black entrepreneurs to be reactive in everything that they do. All right. It doesn't make them to be in the lead of things. So my first point is really, as corporates, we gotta make sure that we provide the information. We enable entrepreneurs to have this info session. We tell them what's going on. How do things work? Then entrepreneurs then, in turn, it's their job to say, based on what I hear, how do I position myself in terms of what I can do, right? As I said now, 50% of grains is imported. This is just information. As to what whomever is listening does with it, their own issue. But those who see opportunities will take it forward, right? And the nice thing is that all the companies that are buying grains are importing 50%. It's a no-brainer. The stats are there, right? We've got colleagues like Wandile who writes about these things, right? So we need to also make sure entrepreneurs read, because this information is available. As much as one would think it's hidden, it's available, it's in articles, but me being in the system, I can actually confirm it that it is like that. And then entrepreneurs need to be able to look at themselves, understand what does it take to leverage those opportunities in terms of what capacity is needed, what criteria, what compliance stuff is needed. And they must ask those questions. And they'll be told why. Because when you go to a corporate and you look for the opportunity, they'll measure you based on what they expect you to have. Again, entrepreneurs gotta have the right questions to ask. They gotta ask these things. The follow-ups becomes critical for them in order to prepare themselves for these opportunities. and knowledge becomes the bedrock of making sure. But there's a third element to it. We got to be able to create instrument of support so that when these entrepreneurs see these opportunities and understand what they need to do, right? For an example, I talked about that I don't want our Black entrepreneurs to be collectors of waste. I want them to be processors of waste. But if someone wants to process waste, they need to set up a plant. In South Africa now, we don't have a program to help Black people to set up plants because they don't have even access to engineers who can tell them how to actually commission a plant, right? Never mind that they will struggle to get financing. So we need to give them advisory around how to set up these structures in terms of commissioning plants, what to do this, how do you set up your machine. This advice needs to be available, all right? In the old days when there was NAMEC in South Africa, those who've been long enough in entrepreneurship would know, but now today is CEDA. NAMEC used to have engineers who helped engineering companies. When CEDA started, the whole NAMEC collapsed. They closed it, right? Now you've got generic business advisors who can't tell you anything about engineering support. We need those structures back so that our people can be taught. And then your support element over and above the advisory is finance. Because to commission that factory, you're gonna need money, right? This is where now the innovative in terms of our financial instrument, we need to have these green funds coming through, which are funds that are funding projects that are driving sustainability. And also, for example, within the ESD that I'm running, the Tiger Brands, I'm working with my colleague, Stian, who's the director for sustainability, where I'm leaning on him to say, what instruments can I create from enterprise and supply development that talks to sustainability? For an example, in agriculture, we've got an agri-fund because it's structured that it responds to agricultural input and investment needs. But for sustainability, that is where you need your expertise, people that are in the sustainability to say, when you set up a green fund to invest in projects, this is how they should be structured, so that you don't use a generic funding instrument to finance sustainability, where we know in some of the projects, the payback is 10 years, for an example, right? So our instruments becomes critical. That's where government needs to come in from your CFAs, your CEDAs, your IDC, and also the private sector in terms of its enterprise and supply development has to create these instruments that are more appropriate to respond. With information that they get with advisory, then should come opportunities. From there, we need to advise them how to set up these structures, and then we need to have the instrument to support them once they've made a decision that they want to uptake those opportunities.
Okay, thank you very much, Lita, for that. We're running out of time, so we've got just about 14 minutes left, ladies and gentlemen. So can I just ask that give us your closing remarks, and particularly about the topic, your inputs, your thoughts, and maybe it could be a build-up on what Lita said at this point in time, just about knowledge, power of knowledge, but most importantly, the power of it being applied. I loved the linkage that you made there around, entrepreneurs, organizations needing to read more so that they know what is expected of them. So that was a great distinction between public and private procurement. Maybe we can pick up from that, but let me allow all of you to have your closing remarks and final thoughts so that we can conclude the session. So we'll start with you, Wantari, and then we'll have Guru, and then we'll have Joe Ash, Dr. Kimi, and Lita.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Thabang. I think from my perspective, in the space that I work in, I view sustainability, or what the practical action items that we need to take, is setting ourselves up for success when it comes to making continual improvement with sustainability issues. And one of those key action items that we can take at firm level, at enterprise level, is ensuring that we put systems and processes in place that will allow organizations to not only just respond to sustainability from a compliance issue, but looking at it as an economic benefit to them. And one of those avenues that we really promote for industry, because we've seen the value that it creates, is adopting, for example, the likes of ISO 50001 standard. it does govern energy issues, but we see that it has broader applications to other areas of the business, even around the issue that Joash mentioned on setting up sustainability metrics and actually following up and monitoring on that. Having such a system as ISO 50001 can assist with some of those metrics. Issues around having long-term sustainable procurement as well, and training and development, as well as communicating sustainability. Such a system as ISO 50001 can assist with that. So my encouragement will be for companies, especially the big corporation, to start adopting this process and systems such as ISO 50001, and then making sure that their partners up and down the supply chain also adopt such system, because it will only be through that that approach that not only are we going to create a partnership, but we're also going to start creating subject matter experts around the value chain or around the supply chain that can help also address certain issues that need more technical skill set, which a small business might not necessarily have. But if they know that some partner up and down the supply chain have a specific knowledge on green logistics, on green packaging, they can tap into those resources. So I think for me, it's about creating those networks. And I see ISO 50001 as a starting point to getting those entry points and barriers broken. Thanks, Thabang.
Thank you very much for that. I think we had said Guru, you're next.
From my side, when we look at these practical application of these ESG principles within business, the metrics tend to lean and leverage on profit, tends to lean on effectiveness and efficiency. I would be wary as organizations to solely look at the health of your business according to these metrics and according to the profitability of the business. If you are in business simply for the sake of making money, then the reason would be superficial. Your why would be superficial to the degree where it is completely internal, where it is self-interested. And this is a thin line that I think that procurement and supply chain managers and much of our audience today would need to be wary of from my side. If you are a ship where your sole purpose is just to go out and accumulate, where are you going to put all your stuff? It's another reminder to say, one day you're going to die. Everyone here, we're all going to be dead. So if you're just doing it for the money, then why are you doing it? Or are you a ship with a destination? When a business has uncovered the purpose for their existence, then there seems to be more focus and, like we said, then there is that self-effulgent benevolence that seems to take over the business and the reason for their existence. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Guru. Thank you for those inputs as well. I think we said Dr. Kimi, yes, and then we'll have to ask.
So for me, the solution is education. Education, and more education. And we need to start at this earliest age as possible. We've got approximately over a million, or maybe a couple of million young people in our education systems. But if you look at the educational curricula that they follow, whether it's at school level or primary school level or tertiary school level, you'll find that many of the curricula are out of sync with what the world needs right now. And very few of the educators are actually capable and conscious of what kind of knowledge is needed to live in the world and what sustainability means. So we need to radically overhaul what we are doing. I don't have as much faith as government in the CETAs, etc. I think it starts with the self. We individually need to make that conscious decision that we want to contribute towards a sustainable world. And through that, through our own personal initiatives to understand, to learn, to read, to dialogue about this, to attend this kind of webinars. I think that is what we need to do. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our families, we owe it to our society, and we owe it to the planet. So it needs, with a conscious step, we need to make that step. You know, there's been too much dependence on someone else doing the first step, or the government will provide. But if you look at the reality and what the world that we're facing, governments have failed us. Institutions have failed us. We need to step up. We need to re-conscientize ourselves, and we need to make sure that we apply the pressure where we can, we become activists where we can, and to start to effect that slow, long walk to freedom. That, for me, is the only way. And being in an education institution, you can see that my logo here is Future Business Leaders. It's important for us to recognize our responsibility and our custodianship of the planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kimi. Thank you. Appreciate those thoughts. Dr. Joash?
Thank you very much for this chance again. And for me, what I want to support what Rudy said about education. It is really a very important point that we should all stress on, because it creates awareness, and also it gives us an opportunity to tell the young people what is required of them for a sustainable earth or a sustainable environment where we are going to stay. But then it is also important to mention that the business community should not just focus on profits alone, but rather they should focus on triple bottom line. They pursue all these things together. Let them pursue profits responsibly. Let them pursue the social performance aspect. Let them also pursue the environmental sustainability agenda in the organizations. And to me, it's important that they report, that they measure all this. Just the same way you measure profits and say, these are our profit targets for next year, and this is how we are going to achieve these targets. My take is we should also have targets for sustainability. We should have targets for social. We should have targets for economics. We should have targets for environment, and we should measure them and report to our customers and all our stakeholders how we are performing in terms of sustainability. Now, the next thing is that the business community should move towards creating a sustainable system whereby everything that you are doing is sustainable, right from selecting your suppliers, sourcing for the materials, making sure that the whole supply chain is sustainable. That way, then reduces the management time that you are going to use in making sure that you're testing whether everything is sustainable. But once you create a system, then the system is able to recreate itself even in other supply chains. Because once you are very successful as a supply chain that is sustainable, other supply chains will emulate you. So all the way from our suppliers, we should always think what's happening with our local community where we are getting our raw materials. Some of the local communities where we are getting our raw materials, they're using child labor. So these are things which should concern us, and make sure that we don't allow that. We make sure that whenever this is happening, we should scrap that supplier from our list of suppliers and have a supplier who implements the sustainability agenda in their business. Apart from that, it's important. We've talked about SMEs pursuing also the sustainability agenda. But remember, it might be difficult for SMEs to pursue this. So as much as we have our individual efforts within organizations, we expect that government should also play a role in this. And the government should play a role in terms of coming up with policies that, for example, if we want to eliminate the use of plastics, yes, as an organization, you can eliminate it. That will be individual effort. But when the government comes in and puts up policies around this issue, it becomes easier for plastics to be eliminated completely. And also, it becomes easier for other multinationals or big companies from developed world dumping their plastics within the third or rather the developing country environment. And this is happening. And we require our governments, our political leaders also to come up and set up, come up with the laws, come up with the policies that can be able to help the sustainability agenda, not only within the business community, but within the community as a whole.
Yes, thank you very much for that. We are running out of time. Lita, 1 or 2 words, please, as we're out of time.
Sure. No problem.
Yeah.
For me, green economy is a huge economy, right? And it is already formed and it's already servicing private sector and big private sector. Obviously, more still needs to be done. As a person who is in the economic participation space of helping small entrepreneurs, the key thing to me is to make sure that we open space for Black entrepreneurs to be participating in that economy, not in the peripheral side of it, but in the mainstream of the green economy. Because part of the education that has been cited that needs to happen in our communities, they also need to participate economically and derive income from that sector, because then it lands far more better when they are participating economy rather than just being provided information. So we need to make sure that we've got Black entrepreneurs that are playing a meaningful role in the green economy, and we gotta support them. And collaboration between public and private sector is necessary to make sure that happens.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lita. Those were great closing remarks. Actually, to all of you, we truly appreciate your time, and we will be looking out in your organizations to see exactly how are you developing the supply chain sector, and also what does the enterprise development strategy look like. So thank you very much all for your time and for those inputs and contributions. Truly, truly, I believe that someone out there is listening, organizations, companies that need this information. And for me, it's not just about knowledge, but it's also wisdom, because knowledge is, what can I say? It flows, you know, it's inevitable we get it, but wisdom is how we apply it and tailor make it to really suit some of the strategic objectives that we can have in our personal lives and also in our businesses. So thank you very much to all of you, and all of the best in the initiatives that you'll be doing. Thank you for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the panel discussion around sustainable supply chain practices. And we were then joined by Guru Kali, who is in partnership with CEO of Conscious Companies. Also Dr. Ruby Kimi, who is the CEO of Tsiba Business School. We also had Mr. Lita Kuta, who's the director at Enterprise and Supply Development for Tiger Brands. And we also had Miss Wantari Maja, who's the project manager at CSIR. And lastly, Dr. Joash Maheto, who's a senior lecturer for transport and supply chain management at School of Management at UJ. And I don't know, if you didn't get content there, I don't know what you're looking for, because that was truly powerful, thought-provoking, and it gives us some appetite and some fruitful points to engage on. So thanks to all the panelists for their participation, and thank you very much for tuning in. I truly hope that you are still hashtagging SAS Summit 2020 and you are visiting our 3D exhibition expo. Put in your comments, put in your recommendations and your questions as well, because you stand a chance to win amazing prizes which will be announced at the end of the day. I'll see you after a very short break.